I was setting down the last dish when Douglas said, without even looking up from his wine glass, "You know the potatoes are cold, right?" I blinked. 16 dishes. 5 hours on my feet. My lower back on fire. And the first words out of my husband's mouth were a complaint. Frances didn't say thank you either. She just sniffed, rearranged her cloth napkin like the table setting offended her. Liam, our son, was too busy texting to notice anything at all. I stood there, holding the gravy boat like it was the last fragile thing in my life. And then I dropped it. Porcelain shattered across the floor like the years I'd spent making holidays perfect. The room fell silent, except for the quiet splatter of hot gravy hitting the wood. Douglas scoffed. "Really, Marianne? What is wrong with you?" That's when it snapped. Not the dish. Not the gravy boat. Me. "I'm done," I said, voice flat. "I'm done cooking for people who don't see me. I'm done pretending this house is a home. I'm filing for divorce on Monday." Frances gasped. Liam looked up, finally. "But Douglas?" He smirked. That little tilt of the mouth he always used when he thought I was being dramatic. "You're tired," he said. "Sit down. Eat something. You'll feel better." That smirk. God, that smirk. He didn't get it. He never did. Because it wasn't about the potatoes. It was about the 1,000 little ways he'd chipped away at me over the years, and expected me to keep smiling through it. This wasn't a tantrum. This was my freedom. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Douglas didn't say a word as I walked upstairs that night. He just refilled his wine glass, sat back in his chair, and clicked on the TV like nothing had happened. As if my words, "I'm filing for divorce," were just noise to be filtered out, like the hum of the dishwasher or the sound of wind against the windows. I closed the bedroom door behind me and locked it. It was the first time in years I'd locked a door in my own house. And still, it didn't feel like mine. I sat on the edge of the bed, my legs aching, the smell of roasted turkey still clinging to my skin. That house had soaked me in silence for so long, I almost didn't know what to do with myself in the quiet. I stared at my suitcase. It had been packed for 2 weeks. Just the basics, some clothes, my old phone, my passport, $1,800 in cash saved from the little side business Douglas thought was cute but beneath me. He never knew that people actually paid for hand-painted cards. He thought I just played with markers while he read academic journals and corrected everyone's grammar at the dinner table. I looked down at my clothes, gray sweatshirt, black pants, hair tied back, no makeup. I hadn't worn color in years. Not since the time I bought a lavender blouse and Douglas said, "You look like you're trying to be younger than you are." So I stopped trying. I became invisible because it made life easier. And the more invisible I became, the more he liked it. But tonight, for the first time, I felt something stirring under the stillness. It wasn't rage. It was clarity. Downstairs, I heard Liam laughing at something on his phone. Frances was complaining about the wine being a little dry this year. And Douglas, he was humming. The same tune he always hummed when he felt in control. He had no idea. He thought this was another one of my episodes. That I'd wake up tomorrow, apologize, and beg forgiveness for ruining Thanksgiving. But tomorrow, I wouldn't be there. And when he turned to look for the woman who had kept his house, his holidays, his meals, and his ego intact, she'd be gone. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed listening to the old pipes groan, the refrigerator hum, the floor creak as Douglas moved downstairs. I knew his patterns so well, I could map them in the dark, the way he'd open a bottle he pretended not to finish, the sound of his leather slippers on the tile, the quiet snort when he chuckled at his own wit, alone. At 5:30 a.m., I got up. Out of habit, I padded downstairs toward the kitchen, my body still clinging to the old rhythm of service, boil water, slice fruit, prepare 3 different breakfasts like some kind of hotel buffet. Oatmeal for Francis. Protein shake for Liam. Eggs and toast, extra butter, no jam, for Douglas. But then I stopped. The kitchen was a wreck. Gravy streaked the floor. Cranberry sauce hardened on the table like congealed blood. The roasted turkey, untouched, sat on the counter, mocking me with its perfect golden skin. And Douglas? He had left me a note. Not an apology. Just a yellow sticky note on the fridge. Don't forget to clean up. Liam needs the car at 10. That was it. No acknowledgement of the shouting, the smashed dishes, or the fact that I had declared our marriage over in front of his mother and son. Just a reminder to be useful. I stood there for a long time, staring at that little square of paper. And then, without thinking, I opened the fridge, took out the unopened bottle of Frances's favorite wine, the one she refused to share last night, and I poured the entire thing down the drain. Then I grabbed my suitcase from upstairs. I moved quietly, deliberately. I left the laundry unfolded, the kitchen dirty, the leftovers untouched. I didn't write a note. I didn't owe them one. I walked out into the cold morning air. No one stopped me. Not Douglas. Not Liam. Not even Frances, who sat by the window sipping coffee, watching me leave like she was watching a neighbor take out the trash. There was no scene. No begging. No wait, we didn't mean it. Just silence. And for the first time in decades, it didn't feel oppressive. It felt clean. The bus station smelled like old leather, burnt coffee, and choices. I bought a one-way ticket to Claremont, small town, 3 hours away, where no one knew my name. I had no plan, just a destination. All I carried was the suitcase, the cash I'd saved, and a zippered pouch with my paints and brushes. My hand shook as I handed over the money to the clerk, but I didn't back down. The bus was nearly empty. I slid into a window seat and watched the sun rise behind the trees, melting through the frost like butter on toast. That golden light felt like mercy. As the miles rolled past, I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought I'd break down in some cinematic burst of regret or panic. But instead, I felt, still. Like someone who'd been held underwater for too long and finally broke the surface. I replayed the last 20 years in my mind, not the big moments, but the small humiliations. Douglas correcting my pronunciation in front of dinner guests. Douglas calling my art a cute little hobby while shaking his head at the invoice I dared to show him. Douglas once saying, "Marianne doesn't need friends. She has me." Douglas insisting I wear beige to his retirement party because bold colors are for women who need attention. And me. Smiling through it. Apologizing for breathing too loudly. For taking up too much space. For wanting joy. I had erased myself so gently, so completely, that no one noticed I was gone until I smashed the gravy boat. And even then, they were more upset about the mess than the woman who made the meal. The bus pulled into Claremont just after 10. It was a quiet little town with a clock tower, a used bookstore, and a smell of cinnamon in the air. It looked like something off a postcard. I walked into a diner that had yellow stools and a waitress who called me Han before I'd said a word. I ordered pancakes. Hot, buttery, unapologetic pancakes. As I took my first bite, I realized it was the first hot meal I'd eaten sitting down in over 6 years. That's when I knew. This wasn't just an escape. It was a beginning. By noon, I had a place to sleep. It wasn't much, just a room above a flower shop run by a woman named Iris, who looked like she belonged in a French film, silver hair in a low bun, black turtleneck, cigarette she never lit. She looked me up and down when I asked about the room for rent sign in her window. "You just left someone, didn't you?" she asked, not unkindly. I blinked. "Is it that obvious?" She nodded, then handed me a key. "No noise after 10. No men upstairs. And don't water the succulents. They like suffering." I almost laughed. Almost. The room was small but warm. Slanted ceilings, a twin bed with a creaky frame, a desk shoved against the wall. There was one window that faced a brick alley, and when I leaned out, I could see the glow of the diner sign blinking like a heartbeat. I dropped my bag and sat on the bed. No one knew where I was. No one had called. I should have been afraid. I had $1,800 to my name, no job, no plan. But what I felt was peace. I unpacked my pouch, laid out the brushes, the paints, the worn-out sketchbook that had been shoved in a drawer for years. My hands moved on their own, painting soft blues, warm reds, an open road. I painted until the sun dipped behind the buildings, until the room was filled with shadow and color and something like hope. That night, I slept with the window cracked open and the sound of wind rustling flower petals below me. No footsteps outside my door. No voice calling my name in irritation. No smirk waiting downstairs. Just silence. And this time, it wasn't cold. It was mine. I woke up the next morning to the scent of roses and coffee drifting through the floorboards. For a moment, I forgot where I was. My hands reached out toward the empty space beside me, where Douglas used to sleep. But it wasn't his name that came to mind. It was freedom. I got dressed slowly. No rush. No breakfast to prepare. No 3 different meals to juggle. No judgmental eyes tracking every move. Downstairs, Iris was arranging sunflowers in a chipped porcelain vase. She didn't look up. "You sleep?" she asked. Like I died and came back better. That earned me the tiniest twitch of a smile. I offered to help sweep the shop in exchange for the room, and she handed me a broom without hesitation. No condescension. No passive-aggressive remarks. Just trust. It felt strange, being seen as capable. After the shop closed, I wandered down Main Street and spotted a flyer in the window of the library. Looking for part-time art instructor, beginners welcome. I stared at it for a long time. Douglas once told me, "You're not really an artist, Marianne. You're just someone who dabbles." He said it after I sold a dozen cards online and dared to mention the word studio. But here, in this little town that didn't know my past, the idea didn't sound so ridiculous. I tore off one of the tabs. That evening, I sat by the window of my room, watching the glow of the diner neon fade into night. I ate a sandwich I made for myself, on white bread, with too much mustard, just how I liked it. No one complained. No one rolled their eyes. My phone stayed silent. No missed calls. No "where are you?" No "come home." They didn't ask. And I didn't need them to. Because for the first time in a very, very long time, I wasn't waiting to be noticed. I had noticed myself. And that was more than enough. 2 weeks passed before I heard from Douglas. The message came at 2:13 in the morning. Just 3 words. "Are you serious?" No "hi." No "are you safe?" No "I miss you." Just that bitter little question, like I'd taken a stapler from his desk instead of leaving a 25-year marriage. I didn't respond. The next afternoon, I got a voicemail from Liam. His voice was clipped, tight. "Dad's a mess. Grandma's furious. She says you abandoned your duties. Look, can you just come home and talk? Be reasonable? Be reasonable." That was always their favorite word when they wanted me to shrink. I deleted the message. That night, I went to the library and turned in my application for the part-time art instructor job. The woman behind the desk, Joan, had gentle hands and laugh lines. She looked over my application and said, "You're Marianne Doyle? I've seen your work online. The Little Birds and Windows? My sister sent me one for my birthday." My heart caught. Someone had seen me, even when I thought I was invisible. Joan smiled. "We could use someone like you. We have a few teens in the shelter program who might really benefit from this." I nodded, blinking fast. "I'd love that." Later, in my room, I painted again. But this time I didn't paint an escape. I painted a beginning. A girl with silver streaks in her hair and mustard on her shirt, sitting by a window, smiling at nothing, and everything, all at once. Downstairs, Iris knocked gently and pushed in a cup of warm tea. "No calls today?" she asked. "Only the kind that remind me I made the right choice." She gave me a look. "Good. Let them miss you in silence. That's the music they made you live without." I held the cup close and thought. Let them sit in that silence. I'm not their echo anymore. It was a Tuesday morning when I got the email from Joan. Subject line, "You're in." Just like that, I was officially the new part-time art instructor for Claremont's library youth program. It wasn't glamorous, 3 afternoons a week, a tiny stipend, but it felt monumental. Not because of the money, but because it was mine. No one handed it to me. No one told me I couldn't do it. No one laughed behind a wine glass. I bought myself a new sketchpad to celebrate. Thick pages, crisp edges, the kind I used to admire but never deserved to own. I sat under the elm tree in the square and sketched the clock tower as the sun shifted over its face. It was the first time I had drawn something that wasn't trying to please someone else. A little boy wandered over while I worked, barefoot, sticky-handed, clutching a balloon animal. "Are you famous?" he asked. I smiled. "Not even close." He peered at my drawing. "Can I be in your picture?" So I added him. Standing next to the tower, holding that ridiculous red balloon, smiling like the world was brand new. He beamed. "You're really good." That did it. Not Douglas's critique. Not Liam's guilt trips. Not Francis's backhanded compliments about my cute little talents. That little boy's pure, untethered approval cracked something open in me. A space I hadn't visited in years. Maybe ever. I went home and cleaned the room top to bottom. Washed the windows. Bought a fresh flower for the sill. Iris raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. She just handed me a slice of lemon cake and muttered, "You've got color in your face again." That night, I painted until my wrist ached, open roads, red cardinals, women with wind-blown hair. And when I went to sleep, I dreamed in color. Lavender. Marigold. Crimson. All the shades I was never allowed to wear. All the parts of me I was told to hide. They were blooming now. And I wasn't going to pull a single petal back. It was raining the day Douglas showed up. I saw his reflection first, in the window of the flower shop. He looked out of place in Claremont, like a photograph from the wrong album. Gray overcoat, damp at the shoulders. Shoes too polished for these sidewalks. Hair perfectly combed, but the wind had other plans. He didn't knock at first. Just stood there, blinking up at the room above the shop, as if he couldn't believe I wasn't already rushing out to greet him. I went downstairs slowly. Iris looked up from trimming a bouquet. "That one yours?" I nodded. She handed me a rose, yellow, sharp with thorns, and went back to her flowers. When I opened the door, Douglas gave me that same familiar look, half exasperated, half superior. "I came to bring you home." Not "I'm sorry." Not "how are you?" Just a command disguised as a favor. I didn't say anything. He glanced around the shop. "This where you're staying? Above a florist?" "Above a woman who doesn't expect me to disappear when dinner's late," I said. He didn't laugh. "Frances is ill. She's been asking for you." "I'm sure she has." He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, we were all upset that night. You made your point. But this has gone on long enough. This isn't a tantrum, Douglas." He blinked. "This is a life," I continued. "One where I don't have to earn basic decency. One where I can eat warm pancakes without being told I chew too loudly." "You're being dramatic," he snapped. There it was. The mask slipping. "You abandoned your family." "No," I said, voice steady. "I stopped abandoning myself." He stepped back like I'd slapped him. Maybe in some way, I had. He looked at me, really looked, maybe for the first time in years. My wind-tousled hair. My paint-stained hands. My smile that didn't need his approval. And for the first time in years, he had nothing to say. I closed the door gently. Not in anger. In peace. Then I turned the rose over in my hands. It had thorns. But it was mine. 2 months later, my paintings hung in the front window of Iris's shop. They weren't masterpieces, just quiet little pieces. A sun-drenched windowsill. A crooked teacup. A woman in a mustard sweater walking into the wind. Nothing loud. Nothing showy. But people stopped. They lingered. They asked questions. And slowly, without meaning to, I became part of the town. Not as someone's wife. Not as someone's mother. Just Marianne. The woman who taught the Tuesday art class, who brought banana bread to the library staff, who laughed too hard during trivia night at the pub. I had bought new shoes, soft brown leather, worn at the toes. I wore color now. Sometimes blue, sometimes rust orange. I stopped hiding my silver hair. I stopped apologizing when I didn't understand something. And Liam? He came to visit. Just once. He stood awkwardly in the doorway of the flower shop, hands shoved into his coat pockets, eyes flicking from the roses to the floor. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically. Just less certain. I've started therapy, he said, almost like a question. I nodded. I was awful to you. I didn't rush to reassure him. I just let the silence stretch until it settled. I didn't know who you were, he added. I smiled gently. Neither did I. Before he left, he looked at my paintings. He pointed to one of a woman sitting alone on a bench under a red tree. That one looks like you. It is. He nodded. She looks happy. She is. He didn't stay long. That was okay. He didn't owe me a redemption arc. I didn't need one. I had already built a life out of the ashes of the old one, piece by piece, color by color. And every morning now, I wake up to the scent of roses and coffee. I stretch. I paint. I walk through a town that doesn't know who I used to be, and doesn't care. Because who I am now is enough. Not perfect. Not exceptional. But real. And mine. Freedom didn't come in fireworks. It came in small, quiet choices. Choosing to leave. Choosing to stay gone. Choosing to live. And I'll keep choosing that. Every single day.